Talking to a camera is an oddly anxiety-inducing activity. No one's around, and I'm feeling like a little bit, on edge. Because I think I'm finally ready to let my guard down and start telling a few stories. Put it out to the world. I don't shy away from telling stories of vulnerability to friends and loved ones. But then when it comes to sharing it online, that's when I start second guessing the whole thing. What will potential clients think of me? What will my family and friends think of me? The list goes on and on. The more I think about it, the more I realize that I'm sick of sitting on the sidelines. It's time to just jump in the deep end and try to hone my skills as a storyteller. We're all storytellers. It's just a lot of us don't want to admit that we are. And that's something that I've done for years. I just assumed that I was fortunate enough to land in a lot of unique situations that happened to do the heavy lifting for me when it came to storytelling. And I'm trying to rewire those self-limiting beliefs and become a better storyteller. So essentially, in short, over the next 6 months, I'm going to tell 26 different stories. The first one is going to start with the letter A, the title of the video that is. The second video is going to start with the letter B, third letter C, and so on until I get to the letter Z. It's called the alphabet superset, and it was developed by a guy called Struthless, a really creative artist that's on YouTube. Highly recommend checking out his channel. And I came across it and thought that is exactly what I need. A little bit of discipline, a little bit of accountability, and hopefully just starting to care a little bit less about what people think of me, because I've kind of accepted that. I'm always going to care what particular people think, but the least I can do is push through and do what I want to do anyway. So this is the start of that. Without further ado, figured wind back the clock and tell the first story where it all began, when I was in the womb. And this one, it's kind of a tricky story to tell because I wasn't technically alive per se, and I only just found out this story for the first time the other day. My mum told it to me, and it was crazy to think that she'd held on to this story for so long. She hadn't told anyone due to an overwhelming sense of shame. And yeah, maybe if she'd told me when I was younger, I would have resented her. But when I heard it for the first time, I couldn't help but have a greater level of respect and empathy for her and what she's been through. Essentially, when I was in the womb and she was in the second trimester, she wasn't in a very good headspace. She already had my sister on the go. She was around 2 years old. She was juggling a newborn, and then all of a sudden she's got a second kid on the way, and it's all happening. Yeah, so essentially, it's actually so tricky to tell someone else's story. And before I go on, I actually sat down with her for the first time in 9 months after just hitchhiking around Australia, and I asked her to tell me this story. And I was actually going to get her to tell the story as episode number 1. And then I realized, hold on a second, you've already broken rule number 1. And so with this challenge, I had to set 5 rules. And I'll quickly read them out before I carry on. So rule number 1, no overlay footage. All that's being shown is just me talking, nice and simple. Number 2, no one else is allowed to talk. I'm the storyteller. That is the only way I'm going to actually get better at this. Not handballing responsibilities over to my mum or friends. Me sitting down, getting vulnerable and doing this. Number 3, chronological stories. So starting from before I was born and working up to the current present day where I'm 29. Number 4, no real editing and special effects or anything like that in DaVinci Resolve. Film it, a little bit of color grading, that's it. No stuffing around, no overthinking it. Focus on the story. And number 5, no script. That's going to be a tricky one. But see how we go. No dot points, no nothing. A little bit hypocritical because right now I have just read out the 5 rules, but now I'm closing the book, throwing it over here, and this is just pure memory and from what I've been told. So back to the story. I'd been conceived, mum's pregnancy was 6-7 months along, and she was not in a good headspace mentally. She was saying to me that one night in particular, she was feeling really frantic, a little bit manic. She'd been dealing with ongoing mental health issues since the age of 12, probably even earlier, but that's when she was first diagnosed with depression, misdiagnosed actually. It ended up being bipolar that she has, cyclothymia apparently. Anyways, 7 months into a 9-month pregnancy, she was telling my old man that she had to go down to the shops for some reason, which was quite out of character late at night. He didn't think twice about it. She's headed down to the shops and ended up at the hospital ward. She's walking around the hospital ward with me in her belly, 6-7 months along, just roaming the corridors at night time, all the lights off, people asleep. She's just wandering the corridors of the hospital. And then she kind of woke up to herself and just thought, what am I actually doing here? How have I ended up here? Got no idea what's going on. And that was the first time when she realized, holy shit, like something's not right. I'm not myself. I'm on another planet. And she didn't know what to do. Which is fair enough. What do you do in a situation like that? It wasn't until later on where she realized she was actually having a manic episode and she was experiencing psychosis, which is essentially an altered state of reality where your perception on life doesn't really meet reality. It's kind of a tricky one to explain, but essentially you're going a bit cuckoo. So she didn't know what to do in this situation. Her first instinct was, oh my God, if I tell people, I'm at risk of losing my first child, Jessica, my older sister. She was born a couple of years before me. And then she was also at risk of losing me. She didn't even have it in her to tell my father about what was going on. So for the rest of my pregnancy, which only lasted another month or so because I came 3 to 4 weeks early, she kept this to herself. Imagine that. Being heavily pregnant, you're battling with psychosis and you're so stressed out thinking that you're going to lose your children if you tell people what you're actually going through. Crazy. And so fast forward a bit, rocks up to the hospital. The delivery goes really well, but she got admitted from hospital prematurely and she had quite a bit going on. She had a few physical issues that meant we didn't really get started off on the best foot. And this is the part that's kind of hard for me to recollect, but I think she had pneumonia. There was a few issues with the doctors cleaning out her uterus and whatnot after I was born. And so there was infections. She had to have blood transfusions. Like the list just went on. And essentially got sent home early and it was just a mess. Physically, mentally, it's already hard enough having a kid, let alone having to deal with all these extra things. And then not being able to talk to anyone about it. Just crazy. There's quite a bit more involved in that. And I actually originally got her to sit down and tell me this story. And I thought it was going to be a 5 to 10 minute conversation, but it turned out to be about an hour and a half. And the strength and courage that she had to open up and tell me that story, knowing that there was a good chance it was going to go online. This is the first time I've seen her in 9 months. All I said to her that morning before she went to work, hey Jules, pretty keen to interview tonight. She's like, what about? I don't know about this. And I'm like, oh, it's all good. I'll tell you about it later on. Don't overthink it. It'll be fun. And then, yeah, put the camera on, and then I got her to tell me this story. And I was just blown away by how she spoke. And not only did she talk about her experience, she talked about all the ways that she handled herself and her mental health moving forward. And so I'm going to link to that. I condensed the hour-and-a-half conversation into about 30 minutes because I know there's a few of us out there that have a bit of a TikTok attention span. So if this short glimpse into this story fascinates you, or you would like to know a little bit about dealing with mental health, having newborns, a lot of stuff that I didn't think I would be that interested at this age, but turns out there's a lot to be learned even if you don't plan on having kids ever. My mother, Julie, she did psychology at university for about 8 years, a degree in HR, and she is really good at understanding people, what makes them tick, and how to build up people's confidence. And I feel really lucky to have had her as pretty much one of my main support networks growing up. And yeah, highly recommend checking that one out. But I guess the reason why I want to start here is because I found that out and it just started making sense why I've turned out the way I have. And I've always known I was a little bit different, and I'm kind of grateful for that. Like Mum said, she'd rather be Neapolitan and have the highs and lows than just be a flatlined, vanilla kind of person, and I feel the same. Yeah, so I guess I don't really know where I'm going with this whole series. I haven't got any of the future episodes planned out, but I figured this is a really cool place to start because it's not every day you hear about someone having psychosis when they're pregnant. I thought I was a 1 in a million case that this had happened to, and I was telling the story to one of my best friends, and he's just looking at me in disbelief, and he's like, no way, man. The same thing happened to me. And I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. How many people has this happened to? How many people out there are holding on to these secrets of fear, of shame? And it's like the connection I felt with him once I realized we'd both been through the same thing, just took the friendship to the next level. It's part of the reason why I wanted to share this, because there's got to be more people out there that have gone through these really hard times and they think they're the only one. When in reality, the more people I talk to, the more fucked up I realize a lot of us are. And I know that sounds really pessimistic, but for some reason it has the opposite effect. Like, we all have our issues. And I think the more open we are with expressing how we're feeling, what we've been through, the more people are going to be open to doing the same. And so, yeah, there is going to be a few stories where I guess I'm going to be the hero of the story, but I'm more excited to tell the ones where I'm actually genuinely shit scared to share them. Like this one here. On paper, I don't really know what I have to gain from telling people that my mum had psychosis when I was in the womb, because it's just going to allude to the fact that something may or may not be wrong with me. And who knows? But for all of those like potential negatives that can come from it, I think the potential positives, and that being that other people who have gone through a similar situation and feel alone, can realize that no, they're not alone. And it might spark just 1 or 2 people to open up and have conversations about things that are really tricky to talk about. And so, yeah, for me, talking about this stuff to my friends is easy. When I initially started opening up and talking about stuff that I wanted to keep a secret, it was tricky. Like, I would often cry talking about these vulnerable times and these stories of regret, stuff I'm not proud of. And now, after I've practiced speaking my truth and being vulnerable, it's getting so much easier. And sure, it might scare a few people away, but I think it'll also bring the right kind of people into my life. So yeah, as you can tell, there isn't a script. Like, this is just gonna ebb and flow and go wherever it goes, and I'm okay with that. It's part of the reason why I want to tell these stories, because I have this way of telling stories where like they just shoot off down another path. So it's just a way of getting a bit of clarity and hopefully getting better at following a storyline and just following whatever feels right to talk about. So this episode, authenticity. That's hopefully going to be the theme that sticks through this whole 26-part series. I would like to entice you to watch the next episode, but I have no idea what it's going to be on. Maybe what I'll do is just start freestyling it right now. So B, what could be a title for the letter B? And it's tricky because I want it to be a chronological set of stories. So right now I'm thinking like, what could be a story in those early years? And like, I don't have these like nuclear family memories from a young age. Like, my parents split when I think I was like 3 or 4. So to be completely frank with you, I don't have a picture in my head of a time where my family existed in peace and happiness. There's times down the track where once my parents were split up, they coexisted as really good friends. And those are special memories to me, but not like memories of mum and dad holding hands and like, you know, all those like family trips and stuff. I don't have that. And I guess maybe that's where the second story can begin. Oh, here comes a fucking another car. Give me a sec.